So we're here with captain of team, Mr. Giles. How'd you go?
Well, I was undefeated in the Swiss, 5 wins and a draw, and then happened to shit the bed in Top Cut because I drew average hands. I lost the die roll to the only infallible player at the tournament, shout out Thomas,
Technically rogue.
technically, and then proceeded to get absolutely sacked because he opened way too his old without normal summoning, so my Imperm Ash were useless. So that was fun. I was on Invoked Dogma. I decided to play this because it was a deck that I was most confident with. I'm not really a fan of the two biggest combo decks at the moment. I've tried playing them both and they're just not really my thing, and I just like the Invoked engine. I think there's a lot of intricacies that you can do on this deck in terms of maximizing your one-for-one interactions and knowing when to hit plays. So, yeah.
Do you think you need a big brain to play this deck?
This deck, not massively, no, because against combo, if you can resolve access to window, that's basically just a win condition on its own. But when you get into like control mirrors, I think that's when this deck, like your technical performance with this deck really outshines itself. But even if you don't have access to window, I think there's a lot of niche things that you can do in terms of like, what you send with Maximus, or when you use Nadir, or how you try and bait out the gates and play on certain hand traps is pretty important. So yeah.
Let's get into the list.
Sounds good. Cool. So first engine I was playing was Invoked. So 3 Meltdown, 3 Osto, Terraform for Meltdown, and 3 Invocation. It's pretty self-explanatory. You want to max out on all these numbers just to see the engine as fast as possible. I'm on 3 Invocation, mainly just because of the fact that I'm playing Desires, so I don't want to banish all 3.
Did that happen?
No, I've never once in testing ever actually banished all 3 Invocations, but often if I do have Desires, I will do the Invoke play and make Megabo. Then before I shuffle back the Invocation, I'll play Desires then, just to guarantee that I can put back one in afterwards. And sometimes just hard drawing the Invocation is really good too, especially if you're playing against the mirror.
That's how you know you're a good Invoke player.
And then on to next engine, which was Dogma. 2 Fleur, 1 Max, 3 Ecclesia, 3 Nadir, and 3 Punishment. Same sort of thing again. You run 2 Fleur because even though you don't want to draw her, because she doesn't actually do anything to advance your game state without another Dogma, just good big beat stick, and in a long game, like having 2 is insane, and you don't want to banish one of Desires.
Didn't need the third?
No, I'd never run 3 because then you would be reliably like seeing her in your opening hands, and you don't really want to be doing that. And then Searches, this card is just insane. It's literally the best card in your deck. And then Punishment, you want to hard draw it just as often as you can. Onto the hand trap player, and just the 1 Schism as well, just because Winder is free as fuck against combo. Hand traps, Imperm, Ash, and Gamma. I wasn't on the beer on the main just because of the fact that I kept flopping back and forth between whether or not I wanted to run it or not. I ended up sliding it. I was happy with these. For the 3v3 that we had a while ago, I was on Veiler in the main as well, but I thought the 12 hand traps was too many to not consistently be seeing 2 in your opening hands. I thought 9 was a good mix between them because you've got about a 48% chance, I think, to see 2 with this or something like that. But in terms of seeing 1, you're almost guaranteed to see one of them.
So you wouldn't change the lineup?
No, I wouldn't change the hand trap line. I'm pretty happy with how it is. It depends on what you're expecting. Like if you're expecting a lot of combo, then I'd probably main deck the bearer over Impermanence. But Imperm's also really good too because it plays from talents. And then finally, just for some power cards, 3 Desires, 3 Talents, and 1 Call By for the 40th card in the deck. This absolutely mandatory. I wasn't running this at the 3v3 and I just found that I wasn't having enough gas sometimes, and if you have an opening hand where you've got access to 1 or both of your main 2 engines and this on top, this just lets you play through interruptions and just be obnoxious. Same as this, if a hand trap you like on Alistair and you've already gone on vacation, then you can just do this to hand rip them and it's just the freest interaction ever. Sometimes you draw, and then this is also just like a Dragoon out, steal it, and Call By is just Call By. It was broken at 3, it's broken at 1. Moving on to the extra deck. For links, Almirage, Gardener, and then the new inclusion this time, Soldier Chaos. This against a control matchup is just insane because most control decks really struggle to out this unless they've got a really specific non-targeting, non-destructive out for it. And then on to fusions. To Natis, I tied around with the idea of playing maybe only one of this and switching one to a Fossil Warrior, but you just want two, because even though you can shuffle back with a Mega, sometimes you want to use Maximus on your turn, sending like this and maybe Titanic Lad, and then you want to use Punishment on their turn, so you wouldn't be able to shuffle this one back. Play this at 1, it's just to get the engine online. I think most players now in agreements that you only really play this at 1 just because 2 is just a bit too win-worry. And then one of the main win conditions of the deck, the thing that searches it, and then the thing you sometimes summon or just abuse with the Nadir, because you've got the Nadir combo that if you open Nadir on its own, you can add the Schism without clone and then discard it so that Max can send Construct and add it back. With the rest of your hand you don't want to discard. Onto Invoked Fusions, Goides, Purg, and 2 Megabit. I wasn't on Darkcrawler, so I did consider cutting Purgatrio, but this just really helps you break boards sometimes, and Goides are just really strong too. And then for the last fusion of the deck that don't summon, Fight for the Dragon. This was a very, very last minute inclusion which I cut Nightmare Phoenix for. I found in testing that sometimes I really just struggled to add a big monster if I only had access to, like, I don't know, a punishment or a Mechaba that couldn't get big enough even with an Alistair boost. So this is just to punch over things like Ultimate Conductor in the battle phase, or Megaclops, which I haven't come up against too, but it's an option. And then just last card of the deck is a Mega. It's mainly there for the recursion to keep Max missing every turn without burning yourself out of resources, and just to abuse this with an Atis. But with Gamma in the main, sometimes if somebody ashes you on a deer and you've got the Gamma or they try and troll you, you can just actually summon the Gamma to make this and just really abuse them.
Did you miss the Phoenix at all?
No, there wasn't once in the tournament that it came up that I wish that it had the Nightmare Phoenix. I think going forward I'll probably won't include it. And then onto the side deck. 3 Nibiru, as I said before. The 1 Pancratops, just because it's amazing. I was on Lancia because I was expecting quite a bit of Dino, because with Christchurch tournaments we sometimes see quite a bit. Also for the Virtual World, that really hurts them. And then back row hate, Duster, Cosmic, and 3 Twins. This was just the 15th card on the side. I wouldn't play Reboot in here just because of the fact that being a control deck, sometimes it's quite hard to OTK, so you don't want to give them that bonus resource that they set and then punish you with. And then for the last card on the side, Ice Dragons for going first. This is really against your combo mirrors, it's good against the mirror of the deck itself, and yeah, there's not many decks I wouldn't say it's in against.
Would you make any changes to the side deck?
No, I think I have finally found a side deck for this deck that I'm happy with, because as my teammates can attest, I have had a really bad habit with this deck of wanting to continuously change the side deck. I think in the last 6 weeks I've changed the side at least twice, maybe 3 times a week. I was on, just earlier this week, I was on Sanctums with Scythe for these 4, which I tested and found was awful. I wasn't on Twins for ages, and I had stuff like Dim Barrier and like Judgments and Evenlies, but I cut the Judgments just because I think in this format it's not enough just to say no to your opponent once. You really need cards that like stop them from playing like Nibiru or Lancia, or like, you know, take out 2 cards, or Ice Dragons, which takes out 2 cards. If the format slows down a bit, I'd probably put Judgments or Evenlies back in.
So your side deck was more mass removal?
More mass removal here, because the main deck itself is already pretty good at navigating through boards. One major thing that I did cut and was pretty happy with, I wasn't playing Darkcrawler. Even though like Darkcrawler had a big combo board, and then Purgatrio through everything is pretty good. What Darkcrawler doesn't out is things like Buster Lock on Savage or on Chaos Dragon Lavinia, because if you have Darkcrawler then it just doesn't matter, because you're only outing the Savage with like
2 negates.
2 negates or something, yeah. And even still, like if you had Darkcrawler and then the Dogma engine, a Fleur de Lis with boost is only 3,000. So if Savage, you know, has been Darkcrawlered, you have to crash that Fleur when you kind of want to keep it and just punch over for multiple turns, which is why I have these in for that matchup too. But sometimes you just have to really hope that your extra hand traps and the like are enough to stop them getting to Buster Lock.
So you weren't worried about any decks too much? You thought you had a good matchup?
Yeah, I think this deck has a pretty good matchup across the board. The only decks that I've really found that this kind of struggles with is like the bigger combo decks like Nobles, because if you don't open 2 hand traps, and specifically the right hand traps, It doesn't matter what you throw at them because they'll just play through it. And then you get hand looped, and because all your main cards are just 1/1 interactions, they'll know what to negate. I find this deck has a really good matchup against like just other control decks. I played against Guru, and just things like Resolving the Deer is really good just to get your engine line and pop cards with Earth and a Tis, because I, at one point playing against Troy, he set a card and activated Hidden City when I had Twin Twisters set after he evenly matched me, because I'd only set 2 back row to play around it. And I had a Blind Waking in which he summoned Last Warrior, but I managed to top deck the Deer like a champ, and then just using the Deer, send the Tis, and then the Tis away the Last Warrior so I could actually play the game and not lose.
I think you mean chimp.
Like a chip, maybe.
That's it.
Yeah.